Santiago was an old man who lived in a small shack near the harbor of a Cuban fishing village. His shack was built from faded palm leaves, patched where storms had worn it down. Inside there was little more than a bed, a table, and a chair. On the bare walls hung a picture of the Sacred Heart of Jesus and another of the Virgin of Cabra, reminders of faith he carried in his quiet way. His life was stripped to essentials, yet it carried the weight of a long history spent at sea. For 84 days Santiago had gone out in his small skiff and returned with nothing. Day after day he set his lines, watched the currents, and waited with patience learned from a lifetime of fishing. But fish had eluded him, and the village had begun to speak of his misfortune. Some pitied him, others laughed gently, but all agreed that the old man was unlucky. The boy, Manolin, had once fished with him. They had shared mornings of preparation and evenings of tired but satisfying return. But after 40 days without a catch, Manolin's parents had forced him to go to another boat, one that still brought in fish. The boy had obeyed, but his heart stayed with Santiago. Each night he visited the old man, carrying nets, helping with coils of line, and bringing food when he could. On one such evening, Santiago returned from the sea with empty hands. His skiff creaked as he dragged it up the beach, the mast laid across his shoulder like a burden. Manolin was waiting, as always. "You didn't catch anything today?" the boy asked, though he knew the answer. "No," the old man replied, with no bitterness in his voice. His tone was plain, as if stating the weather. The boy helped carry the gear to the shack. When they reached it, he placed down the coils of rope and the fishing gaff. Then he set about bringing the man supper. Often this meant rice, beans, or a piece of fried fish borrowed from his family. Tonight it was black beans and bread. He poured a drink as well, which they shared in simple silence. After eating, Santiago lit his small lamp and the two began their usual talk. Baseball filled the room. The boy loved the game, and so did the old man, especially the Yankees. Santiago admired Joe DiMaggio above all players. He spoke of DiMaggio's strength, of how he had played even when injured. "The great DiMaggio," Santiago said, "he does not give up because of pain." His father was a fisherman, too. "Yes," the boy agreed eagerly. "And the Yankees will win again. They have to." They went through the teams, remembering games from the season, speaking of players as though they were close friends. The boy delighted in the conversation, and Santiago's eyes lit with quiet pride. The sea had taken much from him, but the memory of strength remained, and he passed it to the boy in these talks. When their talk of baseball ended, the boy asked, "Can I buy you a beer?" "Why not?" Santiago answered, smiling. So they walked through the village together to the terrace, a small cafe where fishermen gathered. Other men sat outside, playing dominoes or discussing the day's catch. Some joked softly about Santiago's bad luck, but it was not cruel. The old man was respected, even if fate seemed against him. Manolin ordered beer, and they sat quietly for a time. The boy admired the old man's calm, his patience in the face of misfortune. To him, Santiago was not unlucky but a teacher. He had taught the boy the sea, the winds, the smell of weather, the strength to wait. That was luck enough. Later, they returned to the shack. The old man lay down on his bed of newspapers, the boy on a mat beside him. They talked a little longer about lions. Santiago told the boy of his youth, of sailing as a boy on ships that crossed the coast of Africa. He remembered beaches where lions came at night, playing like cubs in the sand. His voice carried the memory as though it were a dream. "Do you still dream of them?" Manolin asked. "Yes," Santiago said softly. "Always. They are young and strong, and they play like I once did." The boy listened in silence, his heart full. He did not see weakness in the old man but greatness, even if hidden under wrinkles and scars. The night passed. Santiago dreamed again of the lions on the beach, of their freedom and youth. He did not dream of storms, fish, or women, only of the lions. The next morning before dawn, the boy came again to help. He found the old man already awake, rolling his mast and lines together. Santiago's eyes were clear despite his age. He had the look of someone preparing for battle. "You didn't wake me," the boy said, disappointed. "You should sleep," the old man replied. "You are young. I am old, but I wake early." They walked together down the road, carrying the gear. The night air was cool, and the smell of the sea sharp in their noses. Other fishermen were stirring too, preparing to set out. Lanterns bobbed like fireflies along the shore. At the water's edge, they loaded the skiff. The boy placed the lines carefully, knowing the order mattered. He stowed the gaff and the harpoon. He carried the small sail, patched so many times it looked like a flag of defeat, yet still strong enough to catch wind. Before Santiago pushed off, the boy gave him food. "Here, this is for today. I got it from the terrace." The old man looked at him with gratitude. "Thank you, boy. I wish I could go with you. Your father and mother would not allow it. But one day we will fish together again." "Yes," Manolin said with quiet certainty. "I will bring you good luck." Santiago smiled. He pushed the skiff into the water, the sand crunching under the hull, then stepped aboard. The boy held the bow for a moment longer, reluctant to let go. Finally, he released it, and the old man rowed steadily into the dark water. The sea opened before him, calm in the early hour. Above, the stars were fading into dawn. Santiago felt the pull of the current, the rhythm of the oars in his arms. His skiff creaked, his body ached, but he felt alive. Today would be different. He rowed out past the shallows, past the other boats. He wanted to fish where no one else went, far into the deep waters. He knew that was where the great fish swam. The small boats stayed close, satisfied with smaller catches, but Santiago aimed higher. As the sun broke the horizon, he raised the patched sail. The wind caught it, filling it with a soft snap, and the skiff leaned forward. The old man settled himself, his eyes fixed on the endless blue ahead. His thoughts were simple but firm. Today, he would prove himself again. The patched sail caught the morning breeze, carrying the old man's skiff beyond the familiar stretch of water where most of the fishermen worked. He felt the pull of the current and listened to the quiet sounds of the sea. Every creak of the mast and every slap of water against the hull were old companions. Santiago leaned into his seat and let the skiff move with the wind, guiding it steadily with his worn hands. He thought about his preparation, which had been precise as always. Santiago believed that success came not from luck alone but from doing every small task with care. The lines had been coiled neatly, the hooks sharpened, the baits chosen carefully. He had saved fresh sardines for today, the best he could find, and he had cut pieces of bonito to use as larger bait. His gaff and harpoon were in their places, along with the coil of rope he would need if a fish struck hard. The boy had helped him load it all, and the old man was grateful for his quiet loyalty. The sea opened wide ahead of him, an endless plain of shifting blue. Nearer the shore, small boats dotted the surface, each crew hoping for a morning catch. But Santiago wanted more. He aimed for the deep waters where the great fish lived, waters untouched by most of the others. His body might be old, but his spirit told him this would be the day. As the sun climbed, the surface of the water brightened. Flying fish darted from the waves, their fins catching the light like silver wings. A pair of dolphins surfaced nearby, chattering as they swam alongside his skiff for a moment before vanishing again. Santiago smiled. He always felt less alone when creatures of the sea moved with him. He watched the birds too, for they told him where fish might be. A man-of-war bird circled high above, searching the surface. Gulls hovered in the distance, swooping low then rising again. Santiago knew how to read them, how to trace their flight to the movement of fish beneath. He had spent a lifetime learning the language of the sea. By mid-morning, he was far from the shore. The faint line of the coast was no more than a shadow behind him. The other boats had disappeared, their sails lost in the distance. Here, he was alone, and that was how he wanted it. He set his lines carefully, dropping each to a different depth. He watched the currents tug them gently, the bait shining faintly as it drifted. Santiago sat quietly, holding the tiller, his eyes steady on the water. He felt every movement of the line through his hands, every vibration that traveled up the cord. His body was weathered, his skin marked with scars from old cuts, his neck lined and brown from years in the sun. Yet his eyes remained sharp and clear, the color of the sea itself. They looked not weary but determined. As he waited, his thoughts moved back to the boy. Manolin had wanted to come with him today, and the old man wished he could have. But the boy's parents wanted him to fish on a luckier boat. Santiago understood, though it pained him. Still, the boy's spirit was with him. He thought of the boy carrying food, helping with the gear, speaking with such warmth about baseball. The boy gave him hope. Santiago also thought of Joe DiMaggio. The great ballplayer was always in his mind, a symbol of strength. DiMaggio played through pain, even when injured. His father had been a fisherman too. Santiago drew courage from this, telling himself that if DiMaggio could endure, then so could he. Pain was part of life, and endurance was what made a man strong. Hours passed. The skiff drifted gently with the current, the baited lines deep in the water. Santiago's hands held the cords loosely, ready for the faintest tug. His stomach growled, but he ignored it. He had eaten little that morning, saving what food he had for later. He chewed a piece of bait fish to keep up his strength, tasting the salt and the raw flesh. It was not pleasant, but it gave him energy. The sea was calm, the wind light. The sun grew hot, pressing down on him, but he covered his head with his worn cap. His back felt the strain of sitting, his arms ached faintly, but he ignored the discomfort. He thought about lions again, the ones he had seen on African beaches long ago. Young lions playing in the sand, strong and full of life. They came to him often in dreams, and even now the image of them filled him with quiet strength. By afternoon, he had drifted farther still, into waters where he had not fished in many months. The surface was smooth except for the ripples of small fish. Santiago watched the horizon carefully. He was alert to every change, every sign. When the man-of-war bird dipped suddenly, he followed its path. The bird hovered, then dived. That meant fish below. Santiago adjusted his sail and steered the skiff toward that spot. His lines trailed behind, ready. His body was tense now, not with fear but with readiness. He felt something in his bones, an instinct that told him a great chance was near. Late in the day, as the sun lowered toward the west, one of the deep lines jerked. Santiago's hand closed instantly on the cord. He felt the weight of something pulling far below, slow and heavy. His heart quickened, but he remained calm. He let the line run, keeping the pressure steady. Whatever had taken the bait was large, he knew that at once. The pull continued, stronger now. Santiago braced himself, his muscles straining. He whispered aloud, though no one was there to hear. "Be steady, old man. This is the one." The fish did not surface. Instead, it pulled away, deep and relentless. Santiago allowed it to take line, feeling the raw strength on the other end. This was no ordinary catch. This was the fish he had waited for. His lips tightened in a faint smile. His long run of bad luck had ended. He settled himself for the struggle to come. He shifted the cord across his back and shoulders, knowing he would need all his strength. The boat began to move slowly as the fish towed it farther out to sea. The old man looked once at the fading line of the coast, then fixed his eyes forward. He was ready. Early hours at sea and the first struggle. The line cut deeply into the old man's hands, yet he did not flinch. He had learned long ago that pain was part of fishing, as natural as the sun on his back or the salt in his mouth. The marlin pulled with steady strength, dragging the skiff farther from land. Santiago let the cord slip inch by inch when needed, never allowing it to snap, always keeping the pressure firm. His whole body was bent to the task, his arms rigid, his shoulders braced. Night settled slowly over the sea. The horizon faded, the last streaks of orange sinking into the dark. Stars came out, sharp and bright against the black sky. Santiago lifted his eyes to them for a moment. He had always trusted the stars to guide him, but tonight they felt like silent witnesses to his trial. The marlin swam deep, unseen, its weight heavy on the line. Santiago pictured it in his mind, strong, broad, and tireless. He had hooked big fish before, but none with such steady, relentless power. This one was different. He spoke aloud, as if the fish could hear him. "You are my brother, fish," he said softly. "But I will kill you before this is over." The skiff drifted in the direction the marlin chose. Santiago could do little but hold on. He shifted the line across his shoulders, finding a place where the cord pressed less cruelly into his skin. Still, the pressure was constant, a burning ache that grew sharper with every hour. To keep his mind steady, Santiago thought of the boy. He pictured Manolin's face, the way he listened so eagerly, the way he carried gear with pride. He imagined the boy sitting beside him now, holding a line, sharing the strain. The thought gave him strength, though it also made him ache with loneliness. Midnight came. The old man chewed a piece of dolphin fish he had caught earlier for bait. It was raw and salty, but it gave him energy. He drank a mouthful of water from his gourd. His body needed fuel, for he knew the fight would not end soon. The marlin showed no sign of tiring. It swam steadily, pulling the skiff as though towing it by choice. Santiago admired its endurance. He spoke to it again in the darkness. "You are strong, fish. Stronger than anything I have known. But I will stay with you. We will see who lasts longer." The night was long. His hands cramped around the line, the muscles locked tight. He forced himself to open and close them, to keep the blood moving. The salt from old cuts stung, but he paid no mind. His back ached from bending, yet he did not ease his stance. If he relaxed even for a moment, the line might slip, and the marlin would break free. Toward dawn, the eastern sky grew pale. The first thin light touched the sea, turning the surface from black to gray. Santiago felt the heaviness in his body, the weariness of long hours without rest. But the sight of morning lifted him. He had survived the first night. The struggle was far from over, but he was still there, holding firm. When the sun rose, the marlin surged again, pulling harder, testing the line. Santiago gritted his teeth, bracing himself against the sudden strain. His shoulders shook, but he did not let go. The fish dove deeper, and the cord stretched taut as iron. For a moment, he feared it might snap. But then the pull eased slightly, and he breathed again. The old man studied the water. He could not see the marlin, but he imagined its great body cutting through the depths. He pictured the long sword of its bill, the spread of its powerful tail. In his mind, the fish was not only a rival but a noble creature, a worthy opponent. Hours passed with little change. The sun rose higher, heating the air, baking the old man's skin. He shifted the line to ease the burning in his hands. His lips cracked from salt and thirst. Still, he endured. His eyes remained clear, focused always on the cords that connected him to the great fish. At midday, a pair of porpoises appeared, leaping gracefully from the waves beside the skiff. Santiago watched them with affection. They reminded him of the boy, playful and loyal. "They are my friends," he said aloud. "Like you, fish. But friends fight too." He thought again of DiMaggio. The great ballplayer would not quit, even when pain burned in his bones. Santiago told himself he must be like that. He must fight through every cramp, every ache, until the battle was done. The marlin gave no rest. It swam on and on, tireless. Santiago admired it more with each passing hour. Yet he also felt his own determination harden. He would not surrender. The fish was his, not by luck, but by skill and by will. As evening neared, clouds gathered in the west. The sky darkened, and a breeze stirred. Santiago tightened his grip on the line. He knew a change in weather could bring trouble, but he also knew it might tire the fish faster. He welcomed whatever came. That night was harder than the first. His body was weaker now, his hands swollen and raw. The line cut deeper into his back. He whispered to himself in the dark, urging his strength to hold. You cannot give in, old man. You must stay with him, no matter how long. The stars wheeled overhead, bright and cold. The sea murmured against the hull. Time lost meaning, measured only by the steady pull of the fish and the ache in his body. He thought of the boy again, wishing he could see his face, hear his voice. He thought of lions too, young and strong, moving across the beaches of Africa. They gave him courage when his strength seemed almost gone. When dawn came again, Santiago had been holding the line for nearly 2 days. His eyes were bloodshot, his body trembling from fatigue. Yet he remained firm. The marlin still pulled, though Santiago sensed a faint change. Its strength was great, but even the strongest creature must tire. He felt hope stir in his chest. You are beginning to weaken, fish, he whispered. And when you do, I will be ready. But the old man knew the hardest part still lay ahead. The strike of the marlin. The second morning at sea dawned clear, the horizon sharp against the rising sun. The old man's eyes were hollow with fatigue, but his gaze was steady. He had not slept, not even for a moment, yet his hands still gripped the line as if it were part of his body. The cord had cut deep grooves into his skin, hardened by years of fishing but torn raw now. His shoulders trembled when the marlin surged, but he held on. Santiago felt the pull of the fish change. The marlin had swum deep and straight for nearly 2 days, dragging the skiff into waters the old man had not known in years. Now, as the sun rose higher, the fish began to circle. Santiago sensed it in the tension of the line, the sudden angles of strain. His heart quickened. The end was not yet near, but the battle was shifting. At mid-morning, the fish broke the surface. It rose suddenly, leaping from the water with a force that startled even the seasoned fisherman. Santiago saw it clearly then, its body flashing silver in the sun, the great arch of its back, the long sword of its bill cutting the air. The marlin crashed back into the sea with a sound like thunder, sending spray across the skiff. The old man gasped. Never in all his years had he seen a fish so large. It was longer than his boat, broad and powerful. In that moment, awe filled him. This was no ordinary fish but a giant, a creature of legend. His voice shook with wonder. Christ, what a fish, he whispered. Never have I seen one so big, or so beautiful. The marlin leapt again, its scales flashing like mirrors, then dove, pulling the line with renewed force. Santiago braced himself, the cord cutting deeper into his raw hands. His body shook from the strain, yet his spirit soared. To face such a rival was an honor, even if it meant death. Through the long afternoon, the fish circled and surged. Santiago adjusted the line, careful always to give when the pull was too strong, to take when the tension eased. He moved slowly, deliberately, each motion born of long practice. His muscles burned, his back ached, but he remained calm. He knew this was the true test, the moment he had waited for all his life. He spoke often to the fish, his words soft but firm. You are my brother, he said. I love you, but I will kill you before this day ends. The marlin responded only with its strength, each leap a display of raw power, each dive a reminder of its endurance. The sea boiled around it, foaming white as it crashed back into the depths. Santiago's skiff rocked with every surge, but he kept his balance, his feet planted firm. As the sun lowered, his hunger grew sharp. He ate another piece of raw fish, forcing it down though his stomach turned. He needed strength. He thought of the boy again, wishing Manolin could see this, wishing he could share the sight of the greatest fish he had ever known. The boy would understand. The boy would believe. By evening, the marlin's movements slowed slightly. The circles it swam grew tighter, the leaps less frequent. Santiago felt hope rise in him. The end was not near yet, but the great fish was tiring. He knew he must be patient, that a single mistake would lose all. His hands trembled, his arms ached, but he did not loosen his grip. The second night fell. Darkness closed over the sea, the stars sharp above. Santiago's body was near collapse, yet he forced himself to endure. He thought again of Joe DiMaggio, playing through pain, swinging the bat though his bones ached. DiMaggio would not quit, he told himself. I must not quit either. The marlin swam steadily through the night, circling, pulling, never giving in fully. Santiago held firm. His mind wandered at times, drifting with weariness. He thought of the lions again, playing on the beaches of Africa. They were young and strong, forever alive in his dreams. He thought of his youth, of wrestling matches he had fought in taverns, of strength he once had. His body was no longer young, but his will was the same. At dawn, the marlin leapt once more. The sight filled the old man with both joy and dread. The fish was magnificent, larger than anything he had imagined. Its body rose from the sea in a burst of silver, droplets shining like stars. Then it crashed down, shaking the ocean itself. Santiago felt the line strain, the boat lurch, his hands nearly torn open. But he held on. He spoke through clenched teeth. You are killing me, fish. But you are worthy of my life. The struggle dragged on. By midday, the sun was fierce again. Sweat stung his eyes, salt burned his wounds. His lips were cracked, his throat dry. He drank sparingly from the gourd, knowing he must save what remained. The marlin's circles grew tighter now. Santiago recognized the signs. The great fish was tiring. Each turn brought it closer to the surface, closer to the skiff. The old man's heart pounded with both hope and fear. This was the most dangerous moment. A single sudden surge could break the line, or a slip of his own strength could lose everything. He steadied himself, whispering again. Stay strong, old man. The fish is strong, but you are strong too. Strong enough to finish this. His hands bled freely now, the cuts deep, the skin torn. His back was raw, his shoulders stiff with pain. Yet he held on, eyes fixed on the water where the marlin circled. The sun sank slowly toward evening. Santiago knew the time was near. The fish could not last much longer. It was still mighty, but each circle was slower, each dive shorter. The old man's body trembled, but his spirit burned. He prepared himself for the final act. Now we will see, he said. Now it will be decided. Day of the struggle. The sea was wide and quiet, except for the steady pulling of the marlin. The old man had now been locked in battle with the great fish for more than a day and a night. His eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep, his lips cracked from salt and sun. His hands, once calloused from years of work, were split and bleeding, the cuts reopened each time the line tightened. He shifted the cord across his shoulders, trying to find relief, but there was none. His muscles trembled with fatigue, and his back felt stiff as wood. A cramp seized his left hand suddenly, the fingers curling into a claw. He looked at it with frustration. Come on, hand, he muttered. Don't fail me now. Open. He tried to force the fingers straight, but they remained locked, stiff with pain. He shook his hand, stretched it, blew warm breath over it, but the cramp held. The line cut deeper into his right hand as it bore the strain alone. He leaned his weight back, bracing the cord across his shoulders to give his good hand rest. This is the work of the left hand, he said aloud, scolding it. The right is for strength. You must come back. The marlin surged again, dragging the skiff forward. The sudden pull made Santiago grit his teeth, the muscles in his arms straining, his shoulders burning. His cramped hand trembled uselessly. He closed his eyes for a moment, forcing himself to breathe steady. He thought of the boy then, how Manolin's young hands would have helped hold the line. If only the boy were here, he whispered. He would rub the cramp away. He would give me strength. But the boy was not there, and Santiago was alone. He had always known this fight must be his alone. He leaned forward, working his fingers slowly, willing the cramp to ease. After long minutes, the hand began to loosen, the fingers uncurling one by one. Relief came, though the pain remained sharp. He flexed it carefully, ready to use it again. The fish swam steadily, circling deep. Santiago admired its endurance. He had never faced such a creature, one so strong, so tireless. He spoke to it softly, as if speaking to a friend. "You are my brother, fish," he said. "I love you, but I will kill you before this is over." The marlin gave no answer, only the steady pull of its great body moving through the sea. Yet Santiago felt a bond between them. Each moment of struggle drew them closer, hunter and prey, rivals bound by respect. The sun rose high, burning down on the old man. Sweat stung his eyes, salt burned the wounds on his hands. His throat was dry, his stomach hollow. He chewed another strip of raw dolphin fish, forcing it down despite the bitterness. It gave him strength, though his stomach twisted at the taste. He drank sparingly from his gourd, saving what little water remained. He thought of Joe DiMaggio then, the great player who had fought through pain, who had swung his bat though his heel was injured. Santiago admired that. He told himself he must endure as DiMaggio had endured. "I must show the fish what kind of man I am," he said. "I must not give in." The hours passed slowly. The marlin swam on, pulling the skiff ever farther from land. Santiago's arms ached, his back burned, his hands throbbed. Yet he remained steady. He had fought too long to give in now. In the afternoon, the fish leapt again. Its body rose from the water, immense and shining, scales flashing like mirrors in the sun. Santiago's heart leapt with it. Never had he seen such beauty, such strength. The fish crashed back into the sea, sending waves across the skiff. The line jerked hard, tearing at his hands, but he held firm. He spoke aloud, his voice shaking with awe. "Fish, you are wonderful. Truly wonderful. But you will not escape me." As evening approached, clouds gathered on the horizon. A breeze stirred, cooling the air slightly. Santiago welcomed it. The heat had drained him, but the cooler wind revived his spirit. He shifted his weight, adjusting the line carefully. The marlin circled closer now, the tension in the line changing with each turn. He knew the fish was tiring, though it still had strength. He must wait, must endure. His own body was near its limit, yet his spirit was unbroken. He remembered the lions then, young and strong, playing on the beaches of Africa. The memory filled him with courage. He told himself he must be like them, young in spirit though old in body. Darkness fell again. The second night of the struggle began. Santiago's eyes burned with weariness, his limbs trembled, yet he did not let go. He whispered to himself in the darkness. "You must stay with him, old man. You must not fail. Tomorrow he will be yours." The stars wheeled overhead, bright and cold. The sea was black around him, the marlin still pulling, still circling. Santiago's body sagged with fatigue, but his hands held the line steady. His spirit remained unbroken. He thought once more of the boy, of Manolin's eager face, of the warmth in his voice. He thought of the lions too, young and playful. He smiled faintly, though his lips were cracked. "Yes," he whispered. "Tomorrow." Second day of the struggle. The second morning rose pale and heavy, the horizon stained with grey light. Santiago had not slept, not for a single moment, but his body had settled into the rhythm of the fight. His arms shook when the fish pulled, his back ached as though iron rods were set in it, and his eyes burned with sleeplessness. Yet his will held fast. The great marlin swam deep and wide, steady as a tide. Its pull had grown slower, but no weaker. Santiago could feel its strength through the line, a living force moving far beneath the surface. Each shift of the cord against his shoulders told him that the fish was still powerful, still defiant. He chewed slowly on a strip of dolphin fish, his teeth working against the tough flesh. The salt taste clung to his tongue, but he forced it down. He knew he must eat, though hunger was long gone and replaced by a hollow ache in his belly. He drank a small swallow of water, guarding what little remained in the gourd. "You are still strong, fish," he said aloud, his voice rough from thirst. "And so am I. We are bound together, you and I. You will not escape me." The marlin circled wide, then surged again, pulling the skiff forward. Santiago braced himself, hands gripping the line, back straining. His shoulders burned with effort. The sudden pull reopened the cuts on his palms, blood welling fresh. He looked at the wounds calmly, almost without feeling. "Pain does not matter," he muttered. "I was born to endure pain." His left hand had eased during the night, the cramp gone, though it trembled with fatigue. He flexed the fingers carefully, forcing them to grip the line again. Both hands bled now, both raw and burning, yet both still served him. As the hours passed, the sun rose hot once more. The sky was clear, the air sharp with salt. Santiago shifted the line across his shoulders, leaning back against the pull. His body was rigid with tension, yet his mind was strangely calm. He thought often of the boy, of Manolin's quick hands, of the way the boy would have helped without complaint. "I wish the boy were here," he said again. "But he is not. This is my fight." The marlin leapt once more in the heat of the day. Its body broke the surface, immense and shining, scales reflecting light like shards of glass. Santiago gasped at the sight. The fish hung suspended for a breathless instant, then crashed back into the sea with a roar of spray. The skiff rocked, the line surged, his hands burned. He spoke softly, with awe in his voice. "Never have I seen a fish like you. Never such strength, such beauty. You are my brother, fish. But I will take your life before this ends." The afternoon dragged. Santiago's body was leaden, his eyes half closed from weariness. His stomach cramped with emptiness, his throat dry. He forced himself to chew another bite of fish, though it turned to paste in his mouth. He thought again of Joe DiMaggio, how the great player had played through pain. Santiago told himself he must be like that, enduring without complaint. "You do not give in, fish," he said. "Then I will not give in either. We are equals in this struggle." By evening, the marlin's circles grew smaller. Santiago felt it in the line, in the shift of tension. The fish was tiring, though its strength was still immense. He knew the end was nearer, though not yet within reach. The sun set red on the horizon, casting fire across the water. Santiago's eyes followed it wearily. Another night was coming, another long night without sleep, another night of pain. He sighed but did not falter. The stars came, sharp and cold above him. The marlin swam on, pulling steady. Santiago's head sagged with weariness. He spoke aloud to keep himself awake. "Stay awake, old man. Do not let the fish find you sleeping. He is too strong. You must match him, moment for moment, until he is yours." His voice was cracked, but the sound kept him steady. He told himself stories in the darkness, simple memories of his youth, of fishing with other men, of playing hand games in taverns. He remembered the day he had once held his hand locked against the strongest man in the village until both were trembling, until the other yielded. He had won by endurance then. He told himself he would win by endurance now. The marlin gave a sudden tug, and the skiff shifted. Santiago jolted upright, his body alert once more. He leaned against the line, steadying it, steadying himself. "You are still strong, fish," he whispered. "But I am strong too. We will see who lasts." Through the night he endured, his hands locked on the cord, his body swaying with the movement of the sea. He felt no fear now, only a strange kinship. He thought of the fish as a brother, as a noble rival. He admired it, respected it, even loved it. Yet he knew he must kill it. "I will kill you," he said softly. "But it will not be easy. And it is right that it should not be easy." At dawn of the second morning, Santiago's face was hollow, his eyes sunken, his lips torn by salt. His body trembled with weakness. Yet his hand still gripped the line, his back still held firm. The fish had circled closer during the night, the line rising higher in the water. Santiago knew the end was coming soon. He could feel it in the way the marlin swam, the great arcs narrowing, the depth shallowing. He licked his dry lips, his voice barely a whisper. "Tomorrow, fish. Tomorrow I will bring you in." The sun rose again, gold on the sea. Santiago's eyes narrowed against the glare. His body sagged, but his spirit burned steady. The second day of the struggle had ended, and the fight was not yet done. The fight to the finish. The dawn broke with a strange stillness. The sea was calm, the air heavy, the sky pale with thin streaks of cloud. Santiago stirred slowly, his body stiff from the long vigil. His shoulders ached like stone, his hands throbbed with every heartbeat, his back burned from the endless strain. Yet he sat upright, his eyes on the taut line that ran from his skiff into the deep. The marlin swam slowly now. The pull was steady, but weaker. Santiago knew the fish was tiring, though still strong enough to resist. For 2 days and 2 nights the battle had lasted. The old man felt every hour in his bones, yet he also felt the closeness of the end. "You are coming up, fish," he said, voice cracked and dry. "You cannot stay down forever. Today will decide it." The sun rose, lighting the sea with gold. Santiago shifted the line carefully, guiding it across his shoulders. His hands bled fresh when he gripped tighter, but he did not flinch. Pain was an old companion now, familiar as hunger or thirst. He thought of the boy again, how Manolin would have watched every movement, how his young arms would have shared the strain. The thought brought him both comfort and loneliness. "I wish you could see him, boy," he murmured. "You would not believe such a fish." The marlin circled slowly beneath the surface. Santiago could feel the great arcs in the pull of the line. Each circle grew smaller, tighter. He knew the fish was rising, knew it must soon break the surface. He readied himself, steadying the harpoon that lay beside him in the skiff. The first glimpse came near noon. The line shifted sharply, and then the water bulged. A massive dorsal fin sliced through the surface, dark and tall as a sail. Santiago's breath caught. He saw the huge body of the fish turn in the water, the long sword of its bill cutting the sea. The marlin swam slowly, magnificently, so close to the boat that Santiago's eyes filled with wonder. "Never have I seen a thing so great," he whispered. His chest swelled with both pride and sorrow. "You are my brother, fish, and today one of us must die." The fish circled again, closer still. Santiago's muscles trembled with the effort of guiding the line. Sweat ran down his face, stinging his eyes. He set his jaw, tightened his grip, and waited. The marlin broke the surface at last. Its back rose out of the sea, immense and gleaming, the scales shining silver and purple in the sun. Its body stretched longer than the skiff itself, a creature of strength and beauty. It thrashed once, the water exploding around it, then surged into another arc. Santiago's eyes burned at the sight. His whole life seemed to gather into this single moment. "You are killing me, fish," he said. "But you have given me more than I could ask." Come closer now, and let me end this. The circles grew smaller, the fish tiring with each turn. Santiago prepared the harpoon, his hands shaking from weakness, his shoulders burning. He braced his legs, waited, watched. The fish came around once more, its body gleaming in the light, its great eyes staring wide and unblinking. Now, he thought. Now, before strength leaves me. He lifted the harpoon with both hands, steadying it though his arms trembled. The line pulled, the fish surged, the skiff rocked. Santiago drew back, teeth clenched, and drove the iron point forward with all the strength left in his weary body. The harpoon struck deep, into the great side of the fish. The marlin gave a mighty leap, its whole body soaring into the air, silver and purple shining in the sun. The sea thundered as it crashed back, the spray drenching Santiago, the boat shuddering under the force. The line snapped taut, the skiff lurched. Santiago clung to the gunwale, breathless, heart pounding. The fish fought wildly, thrashing the water, dragging the skiff in fierce jerks. The harpoon shaft quivered, buried deep in its side. Blood poured from the wound, staining the sea red. Santiago held on, his eyes locked on the fish. Die now, great one, he whispered. You are mine. The marlin's thrashing slowed, then weakened. Its great body shivered, rolled, and lay still upon the water, floating heavy and vast beside the skiff. The sea calmed, broken only by the gentle slap of waves against the hull. Santiago sagged with exhaustion, his arms hanging limp, his breath ragged. He looked at the fish, and his eyes filled with both triumph and sorrow. Never have I seen such a thing, he said softly. You were too noble to be taken by any other. I thank you, fish. I will show them what I have done. He lashed the fish to the side of the skiff, binding it with all the ropes he had. The marlin's body dwarfed the boat, its long bill stretching far ahead, its tail trailing behind. The old man worked slowly, carefully, though his hands bled and his back screamed with pain. When it was secured, he sat in the stern, gazing at the prize that had cost him so much. You are mine now, he said. But I wish it had been another way. I killed you for pride, for food, for proof. Yet I love you as well. That is the way of life. The sun dropped lower, the sea glittered red with blood. Santiago's eyes grew heavy, but he held his head high. The great marlin lay beside him, proof of his skill, his endurance, his victory. For the first time in days, Santiago allowed himself to rest against the side of the skiff. He closed his eyes briefly, feeling the gentle sway of the boat. The fight was over. The fish was his. But the sea was never done, and Santiago knew it. He knew the blood would bring others, that more trials awaited him before he could reach the shore. Yet for this moment, he sat in silence, weary and proud, his heart full of both triumph and sorrow. The sharks arrive. The afternoon sun sank slowly, filling the sky with red light that spread across the water like fire. Santiago sat in the stern, weary yet proud, watching the long, gleaming body of the marlin stretched beside the skiff. The fish was immense, larger than anything he had ever taken, larger than the dreams of most fishermen. Its long bill jutted far ahead, its wide tail trailed in the wake, and its body shone pale silver streaked with purple in the fading light. The old man's heart swelled with both triumph and grief. He had won the battle. He had endured hunger, thirst, pain, and the weight of loneliness. He had faced the greatest fish of his life and taken it. Yet as he gazed at the noble body floating beside him, he felt sorrow that such a creature had to die. You were my brother, fish, he said softly. I killed you, though I did not want to. We are bound together now, forever. The skiff rocked gently as he set the small sail, the patched canvas straining in the evening breeze. The boat moved slowly toward shore, dragging the marlin's great weight beside it. Santiago gripped the tiller, steering carefully, his mind heavy with fatigue. His hands were raw and swollen, his shoulders stiff, his legs weak, but he forced his body to stay steady. "I must bring you home," he said to the fish. "They must see what I have done. You will feed many, and they will know how great you were." The wind freshened as the skiff moved across the darkening sea. The waves hissed against the sides, the sky turned deep purple, the first stars faint above. Santiago kept his eyes on the horizon, though they burned from lack of sleep. He dreamed of the boy, of how Manolin would rush to see the fish, how his eyes would shine with wonder. But the sea was never still for long. Beneath the water, the trail of blood spread far, carried by the currents. The first shark came not long after the sun had set. Santiago sensed it before he saw it, the shift in the water, the sudden tug on the skiff. Then he heard it, the slicing rush as a fin cut the surface, the pounding of water as the shark attacked the marlin's body. It was a mako, fast and deadly, its eyes bright and hungry, its jaws lined with razor teeth. It struck the marlin's side, tearing flesh, ripping strips of meat in a frenzy. The skiff rocked violently, the sound of bones cracking filled the air. "No!" Santiago cried, springing to his feet. His body screamed with pain, but his spirit surged with fury. "You will not have him." He seized the harpoon, still tied to the boat with a new shaft, and braced his feet wide on the deck. The shark circled, came in again, its mouth open, its body sleek and terrible in the moonlight. Santiago waited, his muscles tense. As the shark lunged, he drove the harpoon down with all his strength. The iron point struck deep, piercing the shark's brain. The great fish thrashed once, blood pouring from its mouth, then sank slowly into the sea. Santiago gasped for breath, gripping the haft of the harpoon. His arms trembled, his chest heaved, but he had won this first fight. He looked down at the marlin's side. A great piece of flesh was gone, the silver body torn and bleeding. The sight filled him with both rage and sorrow. "They have started," he said bitterly. "I wish it were only one. But they will come. They always come." He tied the harpoon again, knowing he must be ready. His hands burned as he worked, his body weak, yet his eyes were fierce. He set the tiller once more, guiding the skiff onward. The night grew darker, the stars brighter above. The sea glowed faintly with phosphorescence, each wave crest shining pale. Santiago's mind wandered with weariness, but he stayed alert for the sound of water breaking. Another shark came before long, drawn by the trail of blood. Then another, and another. They struck with savage hunger, tearing at the marlin's body, ripping great chunks of meat. Santiago fought each one with desperate fury. He drove the harpoon, pulled it free, struck again, his arms aching, his wounds tearing open. The sea foamed red with blood, both from the marlin and from the sharks. He killed one after another, but each fight cost him strength, and the marlin grew smaller with every attack. His precious prize, his great victory, was being eaten away before his eyes. "You will not take him whole," he shouted hoarsely. "I fought for him. He is mine." But the sea gave no answer, and the sharks kept coming. At last his harpoon was gone, carried down by a dying shark that sank into the depths with it still in its brain. Santiago stood panting, his arms limp, his weapon lost. But he did not surrender. He cut the oar and tied his knife to the shaft, fashioning a new weapon. "I am not done," he told the sea. "I will fight while I have breath." The next shark came soon after, and Santiago stabbed with his knife, again and again, until the blade snapped against bone. He cursed, but did not quit. He used the broken blade still, stabbing until the shark sank away. The skiff moved slowly on through the dark, the marlin's body torn and ruined, the old man's weapons broken one by one. Yet Santiago fought every attack, never yielding, never letting the sharks take the marlin without resistance. By midnight he was half delirious with fatigue, his body broken, his hands bleeding, his back bent. Yet his spirit did not bend. He muttered prayers, he spoke to the fish, he spoke to the boy, he spoke to himself. His words blurred into the night, but his eyes stayed fierce. You were great, fish, he whispered. Too great for me. The sharks are more than I can fight. But I fought for you, as you fought for me. The sea stretched endless around him, black and silent save for the slap of waves and the rush of shark fins in the water. Santiago sat in the stern, knife tied to the splintered oar, waiting for the next attack. His body was nearly finished, but his spirit held. And still the sharks came. The night of loss. The sea was heavy with silence after the last fight. Santiago leaned against the stern, his chest heaving, his breath ragged. His arms trembled from the endless strain, his hands raw and torn, the rope burns deep into his flesh. The faint glow of stars above shimmered on the surface of the water, and the marlin's ruined body trailed beside the skiff like a broken banner of silver and red. For a moment there was peace. The boat rocked gently, the waves hissed against the wood, and Santiago felt the ache of every bone. His eyelids drooped, his mind drifted, but he did not allow himself to sleep. He knew the sea. He knew the sharks would return. They will not leave me, he muttered. They smell the blood. They will come as long as there is flesh. The old man tightened his grip on the tiller, his other hand resting on the makeshift weapon, the knife lashed to the splintered oar. His body was weak, but his will was still iron. He remembered the boy then. Manolin's face came to him clear and bright, the boy's wide eyes full of loyalty and sorrow. Santiago whispered to the dark, I wish you were here, boy. You would help me. But you are safe, and that is good. This fight is mine alone. The sea stirred, and he heard it, the low rush of water, the slap of a fin. Another shark. It came from the stern, fast and hungry, striking the marlin's tail with savage force. Santiago rose with a cry, lifted the oar, and drove the knife down again and again. The water foamed, the shark thrashed, his knife cut deep. Blood boiled up around the skiff, and at last the shark sank away, twisting as it died. But the marlin's tail was shredded, torn nearly in half. The fish that had once been magnificent was now a shadow of its glory, its flesh stripped, its bones beginning to show. Santiago stared at it with grief, his throat tight. They will leave me nothing, he said softly. Nothing but bones. Another fin broke the water. Then two more. The sharks were gathering. He saw their shapes gliding under the surface, grey shadows in the moonlight. His heart hardened. Come then, he growled. Come if you must. I will fight you until I am finished. They came in together, slashing at the marlin's flanks, ripping great hunks of meat. Santiago struck wildly, stabbing, slashing, shouting curses. He drove one off, cut another across the head, stabbed the third until the broken blade lodged and snapped. The sharks wheeled away, but the marlin was mangled further, its silver sides torn open, ribs showing through the shredded flesh. Santiago dropped the useless oar, panting, sweat and salt burning his eyes. Now he had no blade. His harpoon was gone, his knife broken. He had only his hands, his fists, and the club of an oar. He tied the tiller with trembling fingers, lashed the remaining oar to use as a club, and stood waiting. His knees shook, but his spirit stood tall. The night deepened. Clouds covered the stars. The sea rolled black and endless, carrying the skiff slowly toward land. And still the sharks came. They struck in twos and threes, their jaws snapping, their bodies slamming against the skiff. Santiago swung the oar with all the strength left in his arms, striking heads, cracking against bone, beating them back again and again. His shoulders screamed with pain, his palms bled anew, but he did not falter. You will not take him whole, he cried. I will leave you nothing but bones. And it was so. Piece by piece the marlin vanished, stripped away by the endless hunger of the sharks. Flesh became ribs, blood became white bone shining in the dark water. The sea was thick with the stench of death, with the swirl of scales and torn meat. By the time the moon rose high, the great fish was gone in all but skeleton. Its head remained, its massive bill pointing forward, its spine long and bare, its tail stump trailing weakly. A giant carcass of bone, more ghost than fish, drifted beside the skiff. Santiago slumped in the stern, his body near collapse. His arms hung limp, his back bent, his breath shallow. He had fought with all his strength, yet in the end the sea had taken what was his. Still, his spirit did not break. He looked at the skeleton, at the shining white ribs glistening under the moon, and he whispered, "They did not beat me. I killed the fish. I carried him. I fought for him. What is left shows what he was, and what I was." The last of the sharks faded into the dark, sated by the feast. The sea grew quiet once more, only the whisper of waves and the creak of wood. Santiago sat in silence, staring at what remained of his prize. The night wore on. His thoughts wandered in fever and fatigue. He dreamed of the lions on the African beach, strong and young, running free in the surf. He smiled faintly in his sleep, though his hands still clutched the tiller. When he woke, the eastern sky was pale. The long night of loss had ended. The marlin skeleton trailed beside him still, vast and gleaming in the dawn. The old man's eyes filled with both pride and sorrow. "I have lost much," he whispered. "But I have kept the fight." The skiff moved steadily toward shore, carrying him and the bones of his great fish. The return and the boy. The dawn spread soft gold across the horizon as Santiago's skiff drifted slowly toward the shore. The sea, calm after the night of violence, seemed almost kind now. The waves lifted the boat gently, carrying the old man home with the skeleton of his great marlin trailing behind like a white banner of triumph and loss. The village was still asleep. The hut stood quiet against the beach, and the sand was empty except for gulls wheeling above the surf. Santiago watched the shoreline draw closer, his body bent and broken, his eyes hollow with fatigue. He had no strength left for speech, no strength left for grief. He guided the skiff with the last of his will, the tiller heavy in his blistered hands. When the boat touched the shallow water, he let out a long breath. The journey was over. He had no strength to pull the skiff fully onto the sand. He tied the rope loosely to a stake, enough to keep the tide from carrying it away. The marlin skeleton floated beside it, half submerged, the giant ribs gleaming pale in the morning light. Santiago stood slowly, his legs trembling, his back bent. Each step was agony, his shoulders burdened with invisible weight. He lifted the mast from its place, carried it across his shoulders like a cross, and began the long walk up the shore toward his shack. The village dogs barked faintly but did not follow. A few fishermen stirred from their huts, rubbed their eyes, and glanced toward the beach. They saw the old man's skiff with its monstrous skeleton and stopped in their tracks, astonished. The fish was the largest any of them had ever seen, larger even in death than all their stories of great catches. Its bill jutted out like a lance, its tail stump wide as a door. The villagers whispered to one another in awe. But Santiago did not turn to them. He did not wait for questions or praise. He kept walking slowly, step by step, the mast across his shoulders, his feet dragging in the sand. His head bowed, his shadow long behind him in the rising sun. At last he reached his shack. He leaned the mast against the wall and pushed open the door. Inside was nothing but his cot, his table, and the bare walls. He let the door swing shut behind him. He collapsed onto the cot without removing his clothes, his hands hanging limp at his sides. His palms were torn, his fingers swollen, his shoulders cut from rope and struggle. He closed his eyes and surrendered to sleep, his breath deep and heavy. On the beach the villagers gathered around the skeleton, measuring it with their hands, arguing about its length. Some said 18 feet, others 21. All agreed it was greater than any fish caught in their time. They shook their heads, marveled at the strength of the old man, and spoke of him with new respect. But Santiago did not hear them. He lay in his shack, his body broken, his spirit quiet. Later that morning the boy came. Manolin had waited at the harbor, watching for the old man, his heart restless with worry. When he saw the skiff tied to the stake and the skeleton floating beside it, his eyes widened with shock. He ran down the beach, saw the size of the fish, and then turned and hurried to the shack. He pushed open the door softly, afraid of what he might find. Santiago was there on the cot, asleep, his chest rising and falling. His face was gaunt, his hands bandaged with strips of old sail, his shoulders bruised. Tears welled in the boy's eyes. He sat beside the cot, watching the old man breathe. "You tried," he whispered. "You did more than any man." When Santiago stirred faintly, the boy took his hand gently and held it. The old man's lips moved in sleep, murmuring words about lions on the beach. Manolin listened quietly, his heart heavy but proud. When Santiago finally woke, the boy was still there. The old man blinked, his eyes slow to focus, and then he saw the boy's face. "They beat me, boy," he said weakly. "No," Manolin replied firmly. "The fish beat you. The sharks did not. None of them are worthy of you." Santiago smiled faintly. "It was a great fish. They will talk about it for years," the boy said. "They will know what you did." The old man closed his eyes again. "I need sleep." "You will have food," the boy said. "I will bring broth, and clean bandages, and we will fish together again." Santiago did not answer. He was already drifting back into dreams, his mind carried far away to the coast of Africa, to the days of his youth when lions played on the beaches at dusk. He watched them in his mind's eye, proud, strong, forever young. The boy sat with him, his small hand resting on the old man's arm, his gaze steady and loyal. Outside, the villagers still crowded around the skeleton, their voices rising in wonder, their respect for Santiago reborn. But inside the shack there was silence, broken only by the steady breathing of the old man and the quiet heartbeat of the boy who would never leave him. And in the old man's dream, the lions ran free on the beach, their manes bright in the sunset, their paws strong against the sand.